If you're looking for fast property growth in Brisbane and wondering whether you missed the boat, this video will show you exactly where the data says the next wave of growth is happening right now. I'm Gilbert, founder of SuburbsFinder, and over the past month, I've analyzed every metric that matters across Brisbane's suburbs. And what I found might surprise you. While everyone's debating whether Brisbane is done, the data is telling a completely different story. When I pulled data on listings, vacancy rates, and days on market, I found 10 suburbs where supply is so constrained and demand so persistent that growth isn't slowing. So, let me walk you through exactly which Brisbane suburbs are positioned for the next growth phase. I'll show you the specific data points that prove these evidence-based opportunities. So let's get into it. I'll start by giving you some context on where Brisbane stands right now compared to every other capital city. Over the past 12 months, Brisbane has become Australia's standout performer. Firstly, Melbourne's median sits at $860,000 with a relatively flat growth. Adelaide is at $880,000, up by about 10%. Perth hit $835 with 13% growth, though that's cooling after an extraordinary post-COVID surge. Sydney remains the most expensive at $1.53 million, but growth has slowed down to 5.5%. Brisbane's median is now $980,000, representing 12.64% growth year-on-year. In the past 3 years, Brisbane's cumulative price growth in capital cities sits near 28.5%. That's second only to Perth. But unlike Perth, which saw an explosive and potentially unsustainable spikes, Brisbane's growth has been more measured and consistent. What you need to understand is this: Brisbane has transitioned from an affordability-led boom to an infrastructure and lifestyle-driven expansion. That shift changes everything about where the opportunity sits now. People keep asking me whether Brisbane has peaked. My answer is straightforward. Brisbane hasn't peaked. It's matured. The market is consolidating, not correcting. The data proves it. Let me show you why Brisbane's fundamentals are still strong, starting with supply. Nationally, listings are rising in Sydney and Melbourne as sellers test the market. But in Brisbane, listings are only up by 1.5% year-on-year. That's not a sign of that market. That's a supply crunch. When I look at specific suburbs through SuburbsFinder, the picture gets even tighter. Yeronga has stock on market at just 1.2%. Ascot is sitting at 0.72%. These aren't just low numbers. They're near impossible buying conditions for anyone trying to secure property. Compare that to Melbourne, where listings rose by 9% in 2025 and vacancy rates have climbed to 2.5%. Brisbane's average vacancy rate is 1.3%. That's the tightest among major capitals. It's tighter than Perth's 1.4% and miles below Sydney's 2.2%. Let me put that in perspective for you. When vacancy rate sits below 1.5%, it means tenants are competing for properties. Rental demand isn't easing, it's intensifying. Suburbs like Chermside have vacancy rate of 1.09%. Nanda sits at 1.32%. Alderley is at 1.35%. These are rental markets under serious pressure, and that pressure flows directly into capital growth. Now let's talk about sales velocity, because this is where you can see buyer urgency in real time. Across Brisbane's top-performing suburbs, the average days on market is 31 days. Sydney's sitting at 30, Melbourne is at 30. When you zoom into specific Brisbane suburbs, the picture sharpens even more. Chermside properties are selling in 14 days. Nanda properties move in 20 days. Yeronga takes 24 days. Fast sales at current price levels tell you one thing: demand is still strong and buyers aren't hesitating. The other side of this equation is construction, and this is critical. Building approvals across Brisbane are 25% below 2018 levels. Developers aren't keeping up with demand. That means the supply shortage isn't a short-term blip. It's a structural constraint that will keep upward pressure on prices well into 2026. So when you hear people say Brisbane's market is overheated, the data says the opposite. It's undersupplied. That imbalance is the foundation for sustained growth. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, which is affordability. Yes, Brisbane has become more expensive. The median is $980,000, which is a significant jump from where it was 3 years ago. But here's the context that actually matters. Brisbane's median is still 36% cheaper than Sydney's. When you look at affordability in terms of years to own, Brisbane sits at 45 years. Sydney requires 58 years. Melbourne needs 52. That gap matters because it keeps Brisbane accessible to a broader range of buyers. You've got first home buyers using 5% deposit scheme. You've got interstate investors. You've got upgraders from other capitals. That diversity creates market depth. Within Brisbane, affordability varies dramatically. High-end suburbs like Hamilton and Ascot have stretched to 81 and 75 years to own respectively. But suburbs like Banyo and Macleay Island are still within the reach at 30 and 38 years. That diversity is rare, but it means Brisbane can serve premium mid-tier and affordable buyer segments simultaneously, which keeps the market layered and resilient. Now let's talk about yields. Brisbane's median gross rental yield sits at 3.5%. That's higher than Sydney's 2.68% and Melbourne's 3.5%. But more importantly, yields haven't collapsed despite strong capital growth. That's the hallmark of a market where rental demand is keeping pace with price appreciation. When I look at individual suburbs, the yield picture becomes even more interesting. Macleay Island is delivering 4.9%. Nanda sits at 2.9%. Hamilton, being a prestige suburbs, yields just 1.7%. The point is this: Brisbane offers yield diversity, which give you options depending on your cash flow needs. Rents across Brisbane rose 3.12% year-on-year. That's down from the double-digit spikes we saw in 2022 and 2023, but still beating the national average of 4.2%. When you combine moderate rent growth with sub 2% vacancy rates, you'll get a low-risk, yield-supportive market. What I'm seeing in investor behavior right now is this: interstate capital is flowing back into Brisbane, particularly targeting the 5 to 10 kilometer radius. Suburbs like Coopers Plains and Yeronga are seeing elevated investor activity because they offer dual income rental potential and renovation upside. Meanwhile, first home buyers are gravitating toward Banyo and Kermside, using government-backed 5% deposit schemes to enter the market. Now that you have some context, I went ahead and filtered Brisbane suburbs through SuburbsFinder, using growth, stock on market, vacancy rate, and days on market. Based on that, 10 suburbs stood out immediately. First, Yeronga. Yeronga has delivered 30% growth over the past year. Stock on market sits at just 1.2%. It's positioned right near the Cross River Rail, which makes it a gentrification hotspot. Families are moving in, properties are getting renovated, capital growth is consistent. This suburb has family appeal and infrastructure access, which is a powerful combination. Second, Coopers Plains. Coopers Plains shows 27% growth year-on-year, 22 days on market, and a yield of 2.66. It's an affordable middle-ring suburb with rental stability. The buyer profile here is mostly investors and first-home buyers looking for something within reach but still close to employment hubs. Hamilton is third on my list. Hamilton's growth sits at 26%. With a yield of 1.7%. Yes, the yield is low, but this is a prestige Olympic corridor with luxury stock scarcity. Hamilton will consolidate but remain premium resilience. It's for you if you're prioritizing long-term capital appreciation over cash flow. And suburb number 4 is Ascot. Ascot has delivered 25% growth. Stock on market sits at just 0.72%. This is a blue chip territory. Family buyers dominate, and the market is incredibly tight. Ascot represents stability rather than explosive upside, but that stability has real value in uncertain markets. Fifth, we have Hawthorne. Hawthorne's growth is 23%. It offers a riverside lifestyle and a yield of 2.1%. This suburb attracts lifestyle-driven buyers who prioritize proximity to the river, cafes, and schools. Long-term appreciation here is driven by amenity and scarcity. Next, Nanda. Nanda shows 23% growth, 20 days on market, and a yield of 2.92%. It's balanced. It appeals to both investors and owner-occupiers. Nanda's proximity to transport nodes and retail hubs makes it a safe, diversified play. And suburb number 7 is Chermside. Chermside has delivered 22.5% growth. Properties are selling in just 14 days, and the yield sits at 2.9%. The strong retail and healthcare employment base here creates stable demand. Chermside is where affordability meets accessibility. Suburb number 8 is Macleay Island. Macleay Island's growth sits at 20.8% with a yield of 4.9%. This is an entry-level investment play with a lifestyle angle. It's regional, coastal, and appeals to investors prioritizing cash flow over capital growth. Number 9 on my list is Alderley. Alderley has grown 20.4%. Properties are selling in 18 days. It's an undervalued inner ring suburb with near CBD convenience. Alderley is quietly gentrifying, and it's still within the reach if you want proximity without paying Hamilton prices. And last but not the least, we have Banyo. Banyo rounds out the list with 19.9% growth and a yield of 3.3%. It's an affordable emerging pocket close to employment hubs. First home buyers and investors are both active here, which creates market depth and resilience. The common thread across all 10 suburbs is this: tight supply, strong demand, and infrastructure access. They're not speculative picks. They're data-backed opportunities. So, if you're entering Brisbane's market today, where should you focus? First, target mid-year family belts like Yeronga, Nanda, and Chermside. These are suburbs where supply is scarce and infrastructure access is expanding. They offer the best balance of growth potential and affordability. Second, consider yielding pockets like Macleay Island and Banyo if you need cash flow stability. These suburbs won't deliver explosive capital growth, but they'll keep you cash flow positive while the market matures. Third, look at prestige adjacent suburbs like Cooper's Plains and Alderley. These are suburbs positions next to high-demand blue-chip areas. They offer balanced capital and rental growth without the premium price tag. Here's how to balance affordability, yield, and growth. Focus on suburbs offering 2.8 to 4.5 yields and sub 1% inventory. Those suburbs are best positioned to outperform national averages as interest rates ease. Here's my final message to you. Brisbane hasn't peaked. It's just matured. With the right balance of affordability and scarcity, it's still the capital city where you can grow faster with less risk. Now, everything I've shown you today came from SuburbsFinder, the same tool I use to analyze over 15,000 suburbs across Australia. So instead of spending hours hunting through scattered data, this tool gives you everything in one place. Days on market, yield calculations, growth trends, and custom filters that help you spot opportunities before they become obvious. If you want to see how your suburb stacks up or find the next Yeronga or Chermside before everyone else does, I've put a link in the description for serious investors to trial SuburbsFinder. The opportunity in Brisbane is real, but it's no longer broad-based. Success now depends on suburb selection, not just market timing. If you found this analysis useful, hit that subscribe button. Again, this is Gilbert Melgar, founder of SuburbsFinder. See you in the next one.